met you. It's nice to meet you today. I don't know if anybody brought any items for me to look at, but I'll certainly do that. We'll take some time and answer questions in just a little bit. The main thing to consider when deciding whether to keep something or to donate it or throw it out, I hate to throw anything away. The hoarder in me doesn't want to see anything go in a landfill because everything has some value, unless you have old Tupperware that smells like old Tupperware. Then throw that away. That's okay. It's never going to deteriorate in the landfill, but certainly if it smells like old Tupperware, yuck, nobody wants that. Or if you've been saving cottage cheese containers and butter bowls and all that because you might need a storage container, it's time to be rid of that too. The main thing to consider when you're trying to declutter and thinking, okay, I have mom's china and grandma's china, is who might want it. So you first want to check with your family, and I don't know about your families, but my family doesn't want anything we have. Our kids don't want anything. It seems like the youngest generations now, our kids are all in their 20s and 30s. Well, we've got one that's 19 and he doesn't want anything unless it's money. That's all he wants is money. That's all he wants for Christmas, he just wants money. But it seems like that kids don't want clutter. Young people are going minimalist, so to speak. I mean, if you go to a lot of young couples' house and they don't even have a lamp. I mean, really, there's like nothing. It looks sparse. And they're not keeping anything. Our kids joke with us, and we don't really think they're joking because they say, whoever's the last one to die is going in the paper, funeral at 2, auction at 3:30. I don't think they're kidding, so I'm gonna do my best to try to be rid of it so they don't have any work to do. So if you have something that was your grandmother's or your great-grandmother's that means something to you, you certainly want to check with your kids, and maybe if none of your kids wants it, maybe you have a niece or a nephew that might want that. A lot of people have unrealistic expectations about antiques, about what they're worth. And a lot of the unrealistic expectations we have because something is an antique comes from going on eBay. And I've been selling on eBay since 1999. I do that on the side, and I made a good living selling stuff on eBay. But just because something is selling on eBay for a certain price, that someone's asking that price, does not mean your item is worth that. There's a whole lot of things to consider. One thing is, you guys have all heard of the Beanie Babies, the big craze on that. Right now there is a Princess Diana Beanie Baby, and last week I looked it up and it was $500,000. This week it's $900,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's a Princess Diana Beanie Baby. Someone's asking $900,000 for it. Incidentally, there are 2,738 of them that I looked up this afternoon listed on there, and they're selling between the $10 and $50 range. Some of them for $6 or $7. So if I was the fella that thought my Princess Diana Beanie Baby was worth $900,000, there wouldn't be a $10 one on eBay because I'd buy them all up. But there's thousands of them right now. So, and one of the sellers that I looked on, so you have to watch. There is a way to see what things actually sold for on eBay. And there's a filter on the side. If you look on your phone or on your computer, you can enter any item in there and look it up. And it'll have a list. Usually there's 25 or 30 items. And it'll say, you can filter it out. So on the filters, you want to go to sold items. And when you click on sold, it'll show you what those items, how many of them have sold in the last 90 days. Sometimes you see items that there's like 50 of, and nobody's bought one in 90 days. So if nobody's bought one in the last 90 days, it might be a good indicator that nobody wants one. And that's the main indicator of value, is how we decide what something is worth is who wants it. So one thing I know is things go into craze, and once everyone has one that wants one, then what are you gonna do with it? So if you have something that you've been holding on to thinking it's gonna appreciate in value, and you think, oh, that's worth $400 today, so in 5 years that's gonna be worth more. It's not necessarily the case. It might be worth $400 because people want it right now, because it's the in craze, you know. Macrame is really hot right now. So if you have macrame plant hangers, people are going crazy for them. They'll pay big money for, or a macrame, something that sells really high right now. Back in the 70s and in the 60s, people made like end tables out of macrame, you know, that would hang from your ceiling and they put the glass on them. Well, those bring a whole lot of money right now, but maybe in 2 or 3 or 5 years, they won't. So that's something, if you had something from the 70s or the 60s that is, you know, really hot, now would be the time to sell that. If that's something you wanna do, is to sell something. Because once it's not hot, it's not hot, you know. Back in the 90s, Beanie Babies were all the rage. Now, I wouldn't even have Beanie Babies in my store because you couldn't get rid of them. Now, if we get some, we just put a free tag on them and hope that some kid will take it out for us, because it's helpful to me. That's about the only way I can get rid of them, is if I end up with a lot of Beanie Babies. And I'm not saying that there's no value in a Beanie Baby. There might be, if you had one that was sealed, you know, in a, what do they call those? Oh, they had these boxes that they came in that were like acrylic. If you had one that was sealed in an acrylic box and it's never been out of the box and it's got a protector on it and there's something special about that one, somebody might just want that particular one and you might get 20 or 30 or even $50 out of it. But is it worth your time listing it and waiting to see if you're gonna sell it? A lot of times the value in selling our things, there's more, or to be rid of them when we're decluttering, more of the value is what we're freed with. We're freed with the space, you know, the space. So you freed all these shelves of clutter, so maybe that's worth more than the monetary value to have sold your things, you know what I mean? If that makes sense. So I find there's a lot of times I'll go through my store even and I'll mark free on stuff that's been sitting there a while because I want to put something else out, and to me, if I can't get a couple dollars out of it, I'll just put free on it so it goes. If you're thinking about something, something that would be worth a lot of money, or more money I should say, here in Dwight than it would be worth somewhere else, would be Old Dwight advertising. So let's say you had a sign that was from a local business here from the 1800s or something, that would be worth more money in Dwight than it would be worth to sell it in Chicago or somewhere. Because Dwight advertising is worth the most money in Dwight, obviously, to people who want to collect from Dwight. If you had advertising from Pontiac or Sonneman or somewhere close around here, it was good to sell it. But if you have advertising from, let's say, Belleville, Illinois, or St. Louis, Missouri, you would get the most money out of that by advertising it in that area, you know, to be able to sell it there. Old kitchen items with advertising on it, they do really well. They're sought after. There's people that do just collect Dwight, Illinois, or Sonneman, Illinois, people that just want things from towns that they grew up in. Most of the time when people are selling, they want to buy back their childhood. So they want something that reminds them of, or something that their grandmother had. If they can't have something at grandma's, then maybe they want something that grandma had, or that reminds them of their grandma. The generation of kids now that have nothing, because their childhood was mostly video games or the computer, so they're not sentimentally attached to maybe grandma's china, or, you know, they don't have memories of going to an aunt's house and riding a tractor or something like that. Also, something to consider is the condition of an item. So you have to, if you're going to look to sell something, you want to make sure that you're going to get the most money out of it if it's in pristine condition. And when I say pristine condition, I mean, if someone's examining that to make a purchase and you're trying to sell it for a decent amount of money, they're going to look over every corner, every crack, and maybe we've looked at it 100 times and, you know, you've looked at this teapot and you think there's nothing wrong with that teapot, it's great. Well, maybe you'll bring it into my shop, and when I turn it over, I say, well, the finial's been glued back on. Somebody dropped it 20 years ago, that top, and nobody ever paid any attention to that, you know. So you have to look things over really well and make sure, even on the teapot, on the inside of the rim, a chip like that could affect the value of something. or even paint rubbed off of things. Is there anything in particular that you guys have questions about with like certain items? And
So glassware, like carnival glass or depression glass.
actually, glassware was absolutely dead for the longest time. All of a sudden, it's made a comeback. Used to be the only way, and it's one of these things that goes in fads. Country Living magazine is one that's really good for this. If you go and look in the newsstand articles with the magazines and you see what the trends are, they'll show like a collection. And it seems like as soon as they show someone's collection, then for a year or two, it's hot. People just start collecting it. So milk glass has now made a comeback. So that's good because it used to be the only way you could get rid of milk glass was give it for a wedding gift. Because if you gave it for a wedding gift, it's not new, it didn't come with a receipt, they couldn't return it. So then, they're kind of stuck with that milk glass pitcher and the milk glass vase. And then we honestly used to say that to people when they would, antique dealers would say when they come into a store, they say, oh, you could always give it for a wedding gift. Because, I wouldn't have given you a quarter for a piece of milk glass, and no matter what kind it was. But now people are buying it again, so now I'm hunting it. Carnival glass is one that is certainly, Carnival glass does have a following, and that I would say the Northwoods, depending on the maker, Northwoods is probably more collectible than some of the others, than like Imperial glass, where people do collect them, but some of the name brands bring more money. The Northwoods brand brings more than Imperial glassware. And the color, it's always the color. People they look for the marigold or the blue. Red Carnival glass sells pretty good. And white, people are looking for the white, which you don't see a lot of white. It's not clear, it's actually white. I wish I had a piece to show you. I should have brought some things, I'm sorry. I didn't even think about that I should have brought some things in. But depression glass, people are looking for the green. They're looking for old jadeite. They're definitely looking for green depression glass because it contains radioactive uranium and it glows under a black light. And if you've been to antique stores and you see that they have a black light set up in a cabinet and the glass that glows, that's the one thing that young people are looking for.
Nothing like a little cancer for a gift.
Well, I don't think there's enough of that. It's a small amount that's in there. And I'm not gonna say it can't cause cancer, but we ate off of it at Grandma's house So I don't think there's enough in it to cause cancer. However, if it was chipped or something, if you're constantly eating off something that's chipped, maybe I wouldn't recommend eating off of any of it at this point because we know there's uranium in it. But they had uranium in the glass, that's what makes it glow. Vaseline glass is yellow, and it looks just like the color of old Vaseline. That also glows under black light. Not all jadeite will glow. You can get a black light flashlight. You can order one on Amazon. They're just a little bitty flashlight, and it's a UV light, and you can shine it. There's two numbers, a 365 or a 395. And the 390, I believe it's the 395 will only light uranium glass, but the 365 will also glow on manganese. So if there's glass that has manganese in it, it will glow as well. But kids like that glassware, so that is highly collectible, and that's something that you could sell for a good price and pretty quickly if it was that's something you were considering downsizing, was green depression glass. And if you put it out on a yard sale, you could mark it pretty high and it wouldn't set but a minute.
So when you talk about you can sell, if you don't have a consignment booth somewhere and you have something that I brought something to you that you said, oh wow, well, that's like good, Lynn. Where, aside from eBay or places like that, where are places or having your own sale, I guess, in the yard?
Well, and that
is it all online? Is that the way it's going, or?
Yes, pretty much, but I will tell you, I caution you, years ago I used to put a lot of stuff on Craigslist, And you could do that. Certainly, there are people that just buy on Craigslist, but there are so many people that are scammers.
Right.
And as soon as you list something, then you get a text message of people that want it. But they want you to send me your phone number so you can prove that to them that you're real. However, then they're gonna say, well, I sent you a code, what's the code? Well, the code that you send them, don't ever send a code. We could do a whole class on that. The code that you send them then gives them access to your telephone. And if you have your banking information on your telephone, they've got access to your bank accounts, they've got access to every credit card.
Right, which
that
is why
your Amazon
doing it
account.
online can be problematic. So where do you go, or what is the process if you have
So-
something?
To keep from being preyed upon by scammers, basically, eBay is safer than that. You're still gonna get, as in,
Right.
if you go on eBay and you don't have an account and you set up a new account as a new seller, there's people that will, dishonest people that they see it as kind of like, they're like sharks in the water, So they think maybe they can do the same thing. They'll try to get you off the eBay platform and send that. So I would suggest Facebook Marketplace, but on the local yard sale sites. Like, so instead of putting it on the Marketplace Facebook site, you can say, for sale in Dwight, or for sale in Nicole City, where, have you seen those garage sale sites maybe? Are you familiar with them? I'd put it on there, but then if somebody messages you and wants a phone number, you say, we only meet at the Dwight Police Department in person, meet them somewhere public. So I would say, or if you wanted somebody to meet you, you could meet them at my store. I mean, if you want a public place or something, you could say, meet me at Flo's or something, or in the parking lot of any business in town, I'm sure would be okay, the police department parking lot, but if you just don't feel comfortable with doing that, tell them to come into the shop. Because
What
then,
about dolls? Like Madame Alexander dolls, I had some of those, and just older dolls. I always heard that they appreciate in value, but I don't know.
well, they did.
Bam.
Yep, and sometimes there will be someone who absolutely just wants a certain doll that they don't have for their collection, and the best way to sell those in your marketplace would be like eBay. But sadly, what they're doing with most of the dolls now is they're turning them into horror dolls. Like, they're taking a beautiful little porcelain doll and they burn the hair off of it, like and they're doing like hideous stuff that looks like something out of Demon Spawn.
Like doing it using them for a Halloween decoration.
That's exactly right, they're doing that. So if you have a bunch of porcelain dolls that you want to unload and you put those on Facebook, you'll get people to come and want to do that. But if it's something that you've collected a long time, like Madame Alexander dolls,
Right, I heard them all the time.
the market is not what it used to be on that, unfortunately. I'm not saying that it doesn't have any value, because everything has value.
I
but
wouldn't sell them, I was just curious.
yeah, but they're just, in collector plates. So, I mean, everybody's familiar with the collector plates. You used to get a series, there was like the 12-inch or the 10-inch plates, and they'd have a whole series, and they would have either one every year, or sometimes Lennox would do this, and they would come out with one every month. And
Gone with the Wind.
yes, the Gone with the Wind, exactly. So sometimes those plates were $100 or more by the time you got done, because you could make, even if they did them quarterly, you'd make 3 payments on them, and you'd get your plate. And all of those plates are bringing between $3 and $5 now. Yep. And you can't, and the market used to be there, people wanted them, but now, because nobody younger is collecting them, people don't want those collectibles. I went to an auction, and during COVID, they were doing pickups where you could go and you could bid online to these auction companies, and these were like highly advertised, and you would go online. Well, I'm sitting around bored at home because it's COVID, so I'm bidding $1 on all of these items, and collector's plates was one of them. I didn't bid $1 per plate, I bid $1 for a box of 25 plates. And I'm just bored, thinking, well, maybe I'll get 1 or 2 of them, something to do, and I'll put them on eBay. Well, I got so many plates that I couldn't fit them all in my car, and I had to start flattening the boxes they were in. These plates had I think I paid $60 and I got an entire minivan full of plates. And I had to start taking them out of the boxes and flattening the boxes and shoving them under the seats to stack all the plates up. I got home with all those plates. And I haven't made my $60 back yet selling them for $1 a piece. I haven't sold 60 of them.
So did the plates still have the certificates?
They had the certificates, they had the boxes, and some of them had cash register receipts. I'm trying to think of the name. There was one series that I did sell 2 of them for $5 each. I think they were Alice in Wonderland series. I sold 2 of those and I got $5 each on eBay for them. With free shipping, so I had to pay the shipping. Yeah. So sometimes things just, the markets, you think might be a market there and there's not. And that was one of those things that 30 years ago when I started doing this, they were bringing good money, collector's plates, so I thought, there's a lot of money in those collector's plates. Well, I didn't check them again before I bought all those. And that's my own mistake, because I'm supposed to be a professional. But it's easy, you know, if you don't check something often. And a lot of times you buy something because it's going for a high price. If people that are buying to resell will tell you, they buy something because it's going for a high price, but by the time they get around to listing it, it's not going for a high price anymore. And that's back to if everyone that has one, or everyone that wants one has one, they're not valuable anymore. So I would say if you have things that you want to sell, the first thing is to figure out what it is. If you have something and you don't know what it is, never sell it unless you know for certain what that item is. I found a piece of silver. I knew it was silver, but it was an elliptical shape and it was strange. But I knew it was silver on a yard sale for $1. So I took that home and I could not figure out what that was. I thought, well, it's not a bracelet because you could try to run it up your arm, but it wouldn't stay up there. It was strange and elliptical. And I kept looking it up. I kept doing Google searches on it and image searches, and I just could not figure it out. And I'd put it back every couple months and bring it out, and my husband kept saying, well, that's 2.5 ounces of silver. You could get $60 for that and make your money. And I said, I know, but it's got a mark on it. And I knew who the maker was, that it was White Hogan, and it was Kenneth Begay. I knew enough about Navajo jewelry to know who made it and where it was. It ended up, finally I found it on a museum website from New Mexico, and it was a handle to a purse. So had I found the whole purse, they were around $5,000, but I had the handle. So I'm thinking, well, what is a purse handle worth? And then I had to determine that surely a leather handbag with a silver purse, with a silver handle, the value, I figured that at least half the value of that was in because of the maker of the handmade purse handle. So I put it on eBay and I started it at $1,800. And I thought I'd put it on an auction for $1,800 or I would sell it outright for $2,400. And as soon as I hit list, I didn't even get up from my chair and my phone went off and I thought, oh my gosh, I just sold something. Of course, I have lots of things listed at the time, lots of things listed on eBay, so I thought, what, could have sold? And I looked and I couldn't believe it, somebody did the buy it now for $2,400. When it sells that cheap, I've had it marked too low. But that was okay because I sold it and I shipped it and they were delighted to have it. And it was some collector from New York that collects those purses. And he was glad to have the handle because he had found a purse that didn't have a handle. So he could take it to a leathersmith and have that on there. So who knows, maybe he found the purse to my handle. I had found the handle at an estate sale. But so sometimes you have a home run and you just don't know until you research it. So if you don't know what it is, don't sell it till you know. Because it might be something that's very valuable. Yes?
I guess I'm still confused. If you have something, how do you know how much to sell it for? Or are you an appraiser? For instance, if you have a Parker pen that is from 1926, and it's got all of the print from the company that made it, and you've got the different points for it. How do you know what to sell that for?
Okay,
I mean, do you sell it because it's from 19, and you can verify that it's from 1926?
right.
Do
Well, Parker pens sell pretty good.
But what I'm saying is, how do you know what to sell? You're saying eBay,
Right.
you put that on eBay for $8, you put it on eBay for $80, you put it on eBay for $800. How do you know what, I mean,
Okay,
and I'm not a tech person.
okay.
People know me.
Well,
What happened there, people?
and I can tell you,
They know I'm not a tech person, I'm more of a paper and pencil person.
well, and eBay's a good indicator of what something is worth, and it certainly depends on, okay, so let's say it's got advertising from a company on it, but is it a Parker pen advertising?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's
all
not
about the serial number, the manufacturer, it's all printed out
on the
on
pen.
the pen.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's from the
It's
Parker
an
company.
orange, the famous orange pen.
Well, I can tell you,
Oh, okay.
so,
The famous orange Parker pen.
okay, so this,
Big Orange, I think it was called. I think it was called Big Orange or something.
well, I'm gonna tell you how I figured out, so we're gonna look for, did you just say 1926?
Yep.
Okay, so we're gonna put in 1926, and you said famous orange?
Big Orange or
Big
something like
orange,
that.
okay.
It's
We'll just
Parker-
do-
It's a Parker fountain pen.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's 1926, maybe it's 1928. I could be. A little before my
Well, we're
time.
gonna look it up.
It's called the Big Orange. It has a gold clip on it that, when the cap comes off, it's got a gold clip.
So there's a Challenger orange. Is it marbled or is it
Is
just
it called Big Orange?
Well, no, this one's called Challenger orange, but does it look like this one maybe?
Or maybe it's Big Red. Oh no, that's brown. That's not orange.
Well,
Maybe it's Big Red instead of Big Orange. Maybe I don't remember. Maybe not clear.
they're calling it orange.
No, that's not orange, that's brown.
So maybe it's red?
Maybe it's red.
What do you
I
think?
apologize. I apologize.
Okay, let's see. Is it solid color?
All red.
All red, so,
Is it big red?
Yes, similar, well, wait a minute, it's got the gold, and it's got the arrow on it, yep, the gold arrow, yep, there we go.
okay.
What year does that say?
It does not give a year, this seller doesn't give a year on it, in the title.
It's similar to that, but this is really a fact, this is, I don't know if that's a
Okay.
fact or not.
So this particular pen, someone's asking $108 for it.
Okay,
So we're gonna put, I'm gonna change it now to the red.
maybe it's Big Red, I'd have to look
Parker Big Red.
in the box. Is it called
Yes.
Parker Big Red?
Yep, 1926.
Oh, God, I love you, thank you, Parker Big Red,
Okay.
1926.
We're gonna look it up.
Are you looking it up on eBay?
I am looking on eBay right now.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, we all know me. I can't even cut my face.
Well, somebody does have an orange big red one on here, actually. I'm gonna show her one more time.
I just love looking at all the pictures and that was a
$4.
Last time you can take a photo and look at it.
And you see what other people are asking.
$27, that's it?
That's what it's
That's
sold
staying in,
for.
that's staying in the cedar chest, that is not going.
That's what it's showing.
My
But,
children can deal with
so,
it.
so the prices for those pins are all over the place. And it looks like that there's,
Nick and Nick are gonna have to go through everything.
let's see.
You have to go on Antiques Roadshow. Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
I cannot believe it.
Holly, the one that you found, what did it say it sold for? Or
It didn't,
It
none
didn't
of
say
them
it
had
sold.
prices, I just went to Google and typed in.
Okay.
I was looking at the photos, cause sometimes the photos have pictures.
Right, sometimes they do, let's see.
What would we make it
So it looks like that pen is selling for between, in the last 90 days, it has brought $12.95 plus $6 shipping,
Oh, my.
$25, $31.47, and someone sold a whole big bunch of them.
Wow. Oh, I don't have a series, no.
Yeah, somebody sold a bunch, and it brought $37.95.
It's like a big pen there.
Right? And that's a case of, is it worth more to you than what it'd be worth to sell?
Yeah.
And you just said that's gonna stay in your cedar chest
Yeah.
because you're not gonna take $27 for it. And I don't blame you, you know what, a pen doesn't take up much room.
No, it doesn't.
It's not taking much real estate up for
But
it.
sons don't have the same sentimental value that
Right.
yours would, so.
And this is true, this is true.
Until they get older.
So, but if you maybe you thought the cedar chest was taking up too much room, then, you know what I'm saying, like the pen doesn't take up much room, and it certainly doesn't take up much room in the cedar chest. But let's say if you had a big secretary or something like that, now if you're trying to sell furniture, that is something that I would suggest you wanna sell that locally, because for one thing, it's heavy and you gotta tote it. Or and maybe you don't want just anybody coming into your house either to get something like that, so that's something that you could take to a consignment shop. And there are stores that do take things onto consignment. I don't have the room to really do consignment, I wish I did, but we have a very small space and we just don't have the room to take things on consignment. But if you had something that you wanted to sell, I do know a lot of antique dealers, and I certainly could send, you could send me pictures of it, or I could take pictures. We could ask around and see if somebody would know, somebody that's looking for it right now. That way you wouldn't have to have just anybody in your house. When you do put something like that, well, Barbara and George Knowles here, they have sales sometimes where they'll have a garage sale or something in their garage. And if you have garage sales, that's safer than if you're actually letting people in your home. I would suggest if you've got something that you want to sell, like large lots of glass and things, like you were asking Lynn, is to put that on a yard sale, or, advertise a sale, set it up in a garage. Or maybe even if you don't have a good spot for one, maybe one of your kids, has a better avenue for a yard sale, like maybe their garage is larger or emptier.
But is it,
You could set
isn't
things
the
up.
typical, I don't know, when we have a garage sale, we don't sell anything for over $3, so if somebody comes and makes it, if there was something of value, maybe they got lucky, but, typically, I'm just, in your
Yeah.
experience, do people put things of that great value out in sales? Like
You can
that,
advertise,
Yes.
you can call it an
Get buyers?
estate sale.
In
Yeah.
estate sales, yeah.
Well, and you could call it an estate sale,
Yeah,
you could call it an antique sale.
right.
I mean, if you put up a sign that says antiques, you only need 2, well, then that's on the end, You could say you have antiques, and, people will come and look. Yes,
I know that athletes' signatures sell for quite a bit of money. I have a shelf of books that have been signed by their authors. Is there,
well, depending on the author, yes, there is.
pardon?
Depending on the author,
Depends on the author.
there is, and the volume of the book. So let's say, if you have a first edition signed by Stephen King,
No, I
and it's a
don't.
first edition, that's something that sells for quite a bit, any first edition novel by an author.
Yeah,
that is signed.
I have a first edition, but I don't know if that one's signed or not.
But they do have a value, and even, so, and sometimes, like the athletes' things that are signed, sometimes they're not worth as much as people think either, because they signed so many of them. So let's say, like, O.J. Simpson just passed away, so his items, someone might want his items because he just passed, so there's not gonna be any more things that he signed. But, let's say.
I know you used to be able to go to Marshall Fields, they have a beautiful bookstore
Uh-huh.
on State Street, and they would look at your older books. I have a book that Carol and I got when we were at the Tower of London in England, and some man who was working there found out we were teachers and he brought some books to give to us that are kept under lock and key at the Tower of London, but you could go in and look at them for, if you were doing some kind of check or you wanted to use some research, you could use those. And he brought them to us and gave them to us and even put his name in it in case we had trouble going through,
That's really neat, and that's something that would be rare to have here.
Yes,
And for the market on something like that, you would wanna contact an auctioneer, but not
right.
a local auctioneer, you
It's
know.
not gonna go at,
You might wanna call Soothby's, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
like,
I'm not interested in selling it, I just was curious if there was, I don't hear anything about author's signature anymore.
and they do, there are some that, and are highly sought after, especially if it has a dust jacket. That's one thing that affects on a book, affects the value is the dust jacket or the condition of the binding. If a page had ever been dog-eared in it.
Okay, well,
But
thank you.
You're welcome, you'd certainly have to check with, we'd have to look up the author to see, and the novel and see what they're doing.
Thanks.
You're welcome, but they are collectible and people do purchase those, and that's something that you would wanna sell online because then you have your largest marketplace. And that's the one thing about it. So let's say if you wanna sell something from Dwight, like if you had a box of old things, an old advertising from Dwight, you'd wanna sell those in Dwight because they're worth more money here in Dwight. So if you had something that, like a book, if you thought maybe it was a rare book or something, that's something that you wanna sell online because you wanna gather your largest market. Because your market's probably people in Dwight aren't looking for, not very many people in Dwight are looking for rare books. Where someone in New York might be looking for a rare book, so your best bet would be to sell something like that way.
In your experience on eBay, can you get taken? Do you get fakes?
Yeah, you can. The one thing about it now, and as a seller, I've been taken as a seller and I've been taken as a buyer. Now they have a return policy, and the person that's selling can say no returns, but you can return it. eBay will force a return if you buy something and you're not satisfied with it. You can get your money back for probably, it says 30-day returns. You can get your money back probably for 90 days. So if you do ever buy something and felt like you had gotten taken, however, that makes it, I don't want to turn you off of selling online, but this is why I don't consign for people to sell online. This is exactly why, because, so you bring me something and I list it for you and it brings $50, and then I give you your $50 or your portion of it, because eBay keeps between 13% and then you've got 20% of the shipping price is taxed, then you have to federal and local taxes. Anything you do sell online, you will have to file a tax return on if it's over $600 in a year. And that's just, you're supposed to report any income over $600 anyway, so it's not anything scary, that's just the legal, how it is, you gotta pay the government. So if you sell something, or I sell something of yours for $50, and then the buyer decides in 3 weeks that they don't like it or it's not what they thought, and they want their money back, then they're gonna take that money right out of my checking account. So then I have to come to you and say, hey, that $50, they took it out of my checking account and they're sending your item back. So, and then you will get it back anyway. So that's why I don't, because, you wouldn't like it for me to say, hey, I need that $50 back. Or, I sold your item, but I have to wait 90 days to pay you for it because I have to see if they're gonna want their money back or not. And the sad part is about that, especially like how the economy is today, people, where everybody's struggling just to go to the grocery store. So, and it's been happening a lot lately, not necessarily with me, but I have friends that are eBay sellers and stuff, and they'll say, people are spending their money and they're buying a bunch of stuff at the beginning of the month, and then by the end of the month, they need to return it. Because their car payment's due and they don't have the money for their car payment, and they thought, well, I shouldn't have bought that on eBay, so then they're returning it. Well, they certainly can return it, just like if you buy something from Walmart and then you realize I can't really afford this, or maybe I shouldn't have bought this, it's not what I thought, so you can drive back to the Walmart and take your item back, and of course you want your money back if you bought something electronic and you can't figure out how to install it, or it doesn't work like you thought it would, or it doesn't fit your television, so you take it back over there and you want your money back. Well, it's the same way with eBay. So if they want to send it back, then it's back. And the nice part about it is on a yard sale, if you sell something on a yard sale or on Marketplace, you're not probably going to get it back. And we do have yard sales coming up. So, I mean, that would be a good way if you're decluttering things and thinking about, okay, I want to get rid of this and this and this, is to maybe list things. You can have it on the yard sale, and then I believe you have, the city will put a list, you know, like a little blurb of what you have. So you can say that I have an antique secretary, you know, and, or if you had a coffee table or something, or you wanted to sell, you can list that for your yard sale, or if you have antique kitchen items, you can put that on there. And when the map comes out, they print a little bit on it, you know, like a few little lines on everybody's sale. So that would be helpful too, because then that gets shared with everybody that's going around looking for things, and then they share it on Facebook.
And that's the first weekend of May sale, I think. First weekend in May.
With the red carpet, yes, I think
They
that is
do
the
charge
first.
you $5
Yeah.
at the center.
To be on the map.
Village Hall.
Yeah. But if you have something specific you're trying to sell, it behooves you to be on the map. Certainly, if your neighbors are all on the map and they're having a yard sale, why, you wouldn't have to be on the map. Or don't not have a yard sale because you forgot to be on the map, you know, because chances are somebody on your street or nearby your street, or if you have your stuff out close enough to the road, when people drive by, you know, they could see it, that you're having a sale. But, and I'm gonna get back to what your question about how do you know what to price it at. So if you look it up on eBay and you look through the solds to see what it's sold for in the last 90 days, and then you kind of wanna make a determination in between there. Sometimes, there'll be something you'll see, well, like the Beanie Babies that we were talking about that they're asking $900,000 for. Well, one sold for $5,000. Well, when I saw that when I was looking earlier, and I thought, oh, $5,000 out of that Beanie Baby. So I looked at that seller, and that seller is the one that has the one for $900,000. Now, did he really sell that Beanie Baby for $9,000 or $5,000? Probably nobody paid him. You know what I mean? Probably he didn't get paid for it. So some things, if you just get a really strange amount on eBay and you look at the other things, you can kind of tell if one thing sells for $300, but everybody else's is selling for $100. You know, you can guess that the price is probably closer to the $100.
Just do the average.
Yes, the average of it. And eBay is not the only indicator of what something's worth, but that's a quick way that you can look it up and tell, because they do have a large marketplace. There are other websites. There's one called WorthPoint. They do charge for their service though. So it's like a subscription service. But if you find an item on WorthPoint, usually they get their values from what's sold on eBay recently. So if you're doing, like if you have something and you don't know what it's worth at all, you can search in Google, and then that'll take you sometimes to an eBay auction that's either open or closed. Which if it's a closed auction, that means it's already ended. And not everything on eBay has to be auctioned. You can do buy it nows on there, just like Amazon. You can just buy something for a price that seller has set. And so not everything is an auction on there. It used to be everything was on auction on eBay, that was the big thing. But now I think they've realized that people don't wanna wait for items, they want it now, so you can just list something with a price. So you don't have to auction everything if you would list something, but it's easy to set up an eBay account. I mean, you can make one in just a few minutes if that's something, you know, if you had something that you wanted to sell in a broader market than just Dwight.
What are the hours of your store?
I'm open Tuesday through Saturday. Tuesday through Friday, I'm open 10 to 3, or, sorry, 10 to 5, and we're open 11 to 3 on Saturday. We do deliver 7 days a week because we're a flower shop too. So, but that is with advance notice, obviously. I'm not there on Sunday to answer the phone that you need flowers on Monday, so you gotta call me Friday or Saturday, but.
Just say, well, a lot of times if people have the ability for technology, you can use your phone and take a picture on Google Lens, and Google Lens will pop up prices. So if you have a son or a daughter, or a grandson or granddaughter, they can take a picture and the price, show pictures of similar items and give you a pretty good price. Now, depends again, for me, like when I price things, cause in the business, like with Flo, I know my area. So if I see stuff that's selling for $25, $30, I know in Dwight, Illinois, I'm probably not gonna get $25 or $30 for that. But that's another option is Google Lens, not everybody knows about that.
I just saw that there's an app for coins. You can download the app and then you just put it over the coin and it'll tell you the average amount.
And that is something that does have, coins can have great value, but I don't deal in coins, that's something I just don't know enough about. Whenever I come across something that's in question, I take it to a coin shop. And that's also something, if you have gold or silver, like if you would have gold coins or silver coins or even all gold or silver jewelry, you could take it to a coin dealer instead of a pawn shop. Because, and I don't wanna knock anybody's business, but you'll get more money out of it from a coin dealer than you will from a pawn shop. Because the pawn shop wants to pay the least amount, you know, and do that, but the coin dealers usually they'll pay on scrap jewelry 80% of spot price that, you know, that's going for that day, so which is pretty good, because you're never gonna get 100% of what something's selling for, unless you sell it yourself. Just like if you take it to an antique shop, and you can, I mean, we buy stuff across the counter once in a while, depending on the price, but, so if you come in and say, I have this whole box of stuff, what do you give me for it? I say, well, what do you want for your box of stuff, because I don't wanna say, well, I'll give you $20, and maybe you only wanted $10, you know? Then I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot, but I always wanna pay a fair price to someone, but you can't buy it and sell it for somebody too, you know? So if something's worth, if something's worth $50, then I try to buy it for between 10 and 20 bucks, because I'm probably gonna take half, depending on what my rent's due, you know, at my shop, what I'm gonna sell it for, because if somebody says, well, they think it's worth $50 too, but they only wanna pay 30, well, if I paid 20 for it, I still made $10. You know, so when you're selling something, you're not gonna get, if you're selling something to somebody else to resell, you're not gonna get as much money out of it as if you sold it yourself to the, you know, to the final buyer. But your items, like, we were talking about teacups, and if you had, or teapots, and if one was chipped or something, now that may not have value for collectible anymore, but crafters use that. So, I don't know if any of you are on Facebook and have seen the teacup gnomes that are in my shop made out of teacups. They're really cute. The gal in the green shirt back there is the one who makes those teacup gnomes. So,
What are they called? Teacup gnomes?
they're super cute.
I take teacups and turn them into gnomes. So it becomes a decoration.
Now,
as
I'll go and
opposed to a
check 'em out.
practical.
And we can't keep them in a store.
Wow.
And she also sells in another store in Morris, and they can't keep them in stock. They just sell so fast. So crafters look for items. Somebody else told me that they were making flowers out of plates. So, you know, that's something. If you have mismatched dishes or mismatched plates, and you think on a yard sale maybe they're not worth anything, well, maybe somebody that wants to craft with them would pay you $1 or $2 a piece. So if you have something, certainly try to sell it, you know, if it's just something that you want rid of. And you're considering having a yard sale, try to sell it, because everything has some kind of value. And maybe the real value is in the space that it frees up out of your cabinet or countertop, and stuff like that.
Well, one of the other things too is everything is seasonal.
Yes.
Everything goes up and down and it goes seasonal. So if you wanna sell Christmas stuff, you don't wanna do it in August. Nobody wants
Right.
it, you can't give it away.
And something else, like right now it's spring, I hope. I hope we don't have any, I saw on Facebook yesterday, it came up in my memories that we had snow, like 3 inches 5 years ago on April 14th. I was like, no kidding. So I'm ready to garden. And people are looking for wash tubs, galvanized pails and pitchers, things like that, that's something that sells good in the spring and it sells good in the fall because people want them for fall decorating and people also want them now because they want to put stuff out in the spring. So even if you have a bucket and it's rusted through, if it's like a galvanized bucket, that has value because somebody will plant a flower. Plant a flower in it. So that's something to think about. Definitely the seasonal items. Like George said, the Christmas items are more valuable when people are decorating for Christmas, so they want them in late October, November, December. In January, you can't give them away. In August, yeah, if you're. But some people do still. There's people that collect that will still buy ornaments all year round. But if you're.
It's just some select pieces,
Yes.
people with collecting.
So certainly, if you have something, I'd say don't just trash it without giving it a shot.
Yeah.
And if there's ever anything in particular and you're trying to figure out a price on it or something, just give me a call the shop and I'll help you, I'll look it up. Or drop it by, or, come by with it, drop by anytime. I'll be glad to look at it. And did you have something, Judy?
Well, you know what, I thought you were gonna appraise things tonight, but I have things that are not real old, but if you wanna look
I'll
at them.
look at it
you're
for you,
welcome
sure.
to 'em.
Yeah, I'll look at it
Oh,
for you.
boy. Oh, boy. This is work.
Putting it in the frame and making a piece of art.
If anybody has a little girl, they might wanna buy
That
it.
way, maybe an office or something like that.
If anybody has a little
That way
girl,
it
they
says
might
name
wanna
and
buy
you
it.
can see it.
Oh, right. Well,
There's one.
okay. Okay, so we have a porcelain doll in the box. Oh, that's cute.
Never been played with.
She's got it.
Just the name and the she says it's a neat.
Okay. So this is a unique brand porcelain doll. And I'm gonna tell you that they probably would bring $10.
Oh, that's fine. That's cute.
Yes, I mean, this,
I know.
you could probably get $10 out of it. And probably when somebody bought it, they get 40 or 50. I'm sure, yes. Now,
This is old and I don't know where I got it or what it is. But it winds up.
now does it got any markings on it? Does it have any markings on it?
No, it doesn't.
No
I
markings.
don't know where I got it. I'm the dumping ground.
Well, without a maker's mark,
Oh, there's nothing on
yeah,
there.
it doesn't really give any information, but there are people that collect cats. And this cat's kind of dressed like a clown.
There's a
So-
bell.
Mm-hmm.
What does this one say?
Well, I think it was $9.99 new.
Okay. So see, that's just things that I had and I thought, well, I'll bring them.
But these are porcelain
There's an
items.
old lamp and it doesn't have any mark. I found that in the attic and I don't know where that came from. No marking on that either that I could see.
No, I would think that this is probably, it's definitely made of China, but I don't think it's made in China. Actually, well, the cord is made in Mexico. That does not mean that the lamp is, and this doesn't even look like that it's the original cord for this lamp. But I would say your lamp's probably worth between $20 and $25 because this decal on the front, Homer Laughlin used this on a lot of their dishes. So somebody may want this to match their dining room if they have this particular pattern on their dishes.
Well, I'll tell you ladies, if you ever listen to the Morse station, 101.3 Morse station, they have on there every morning about 20, quarter to 10, a trading post, and you can call and sell things there at no cost. You can't sell movie tickets or game tickets or cars or whatever, but we sold some old Crocs that way. The guy came from Gardner and bought them, gave us a good price. I've sold things of my kids. A guy came from Mazan, one from Moore's. So, I mean, that's an option too.
That's a really good idea because a lot of people do listen to the radio, and that would be, if you knew what it was you were selling, that is a good idea. I never even think about the radio because I don't hear the radio
I
at
know.
that time of day because I'm busy doing flowers.
And I've also taken some things to the pawn shop in Pontiac. I had a garage sale and I had a price on them, and somebody said, oh, they're worth more than that. So I took them to the pawn shop and they paid me twice what I had the price for.
Well,
So
that's good. What did you sell?
I don't know, some kind of movies I had,
Some movies?
Blu-ray or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
right, and that is now that is something that pawn shops do buy, would be DVDs and Blu-ray discs. VHS are not bringing much anymore
I forget what
unless
else I
they're
took.
horror genre. If you happen to have old horror movies on VHS, people do buy those. I don't know why they want them, but they buy them.
I have a lady that has a shop in a place like yours, you know. And I had some things that I didn't know what the price of them should be. So she looked it up, gave me the high price and the low price. And I sold quite a bit of stuff that way too, but I used the low price. When my father-in-law passed away, we had a estate sale and I had this granite picture like it was $25, and this lady came in and she asked me if I'd take 10 for it. I said, I can't. I said, the sale's just starting, and it's my father-in-law's. I said, what are you gonna do with it? She said, well, I got a shop and I gotta pay rent. I said, well, my father-in-law's in the nursing home and he's gotta pay for that and he's going to his house.
Good for you.
So she didn't buy it. So a guy came and boy, he grabbed it, gave me the $25 and didn't
There
blink.
you go. Well, he wanted it.
And there was an old mirror, I didn't know what it was, and I think she said the total $35. And so the lady that wanted the granite, she came back and she bought that mirror. But I knew what I had because I had help pricing it. So, I mean, you just gotta do your homework and it's not easy.
Well, that's
time
true. It's not-
consuming.
It is time consuming to research everything, but
Yeah.
I am willing to help you if you need to know,
Yeah.
if you know how to price something to sell it.
Are Hummel figurines worth anything anymore?
No,
No.
no.
I got all that stuff, it's valuable.
And not that they're worth absolutely nothing, but they don't bring what they used to either.
What about the Crocs, the big, like the big ones?
Depending on the markings, Crocs usually bring about $10 a gallon. So if you have a 10-gallon Croc, $100 is about a ballpark price on it. However, some Crocs, depending on the markings, are worth more, depending on who made it and where it was made. If you have Anna pottery, any kind of Croc from Anna, Illinois, that was made by the Fitzpatricks, they're worth considerably more than that. And that is, it's been a long time since they've made anything. They also made pigs and frogs and snake jugs, some kind of grotesque looking things, but they're bringing $10,000 and $15,000 at auction. So,
How
yeah.
about your Hager flower pots? They're not worth nothing down or your home.
Well, they are, it depends on if it's a planter or if it's a stoneware flower pot. The planters have some value to them. With Hager and Hole, yeah, they all still have a little bit of.
How about the old canning green jars? Pints, quarts, 2 quarts, glass top, wire lid, zinc lid.
You know, the glass jars, I sell them for $4 and $5, but depends on if they're just a plain ball. There's a whole lot of things with mason jars. They have what they call a ghosted L, so you need to get a book and look at that, where if the L is ghosted, so it looks like it has a 3L on it, how it's written, instead of just B-A-L-L, it'll have like a little, what they call a ghosted L. Those are worth a little bit more. Also, something with canning jars is if you turn it over and look at the number on the bottom, there's an old, I'd like to say it's an old wives' tale, but people will pay it. So I'm willing to go along with it. I'm not sure if I believe the superstition to it. But when you turn over a mason jar, and if you got any, when you go home and look at them,
Oh,
you'll
I
have
got
like
too
number
many of
1,
them.
2, 3, and they have numbers on them. And if you find one that's a number 13, they call that the unlucky 13 jar. And the old blue ones, years ago, when the moonshiners were running moonshine during Prohibition, they would break those jars, they wouldn't have them in their car. They were superstitious about it. Now, this is what they say way down in the south, but up here, you can get $20 off a jar if it has the number 13 on the bottom. All day long, $20 if you have a lid or if you don't. They'll pay $20 for it. I've never got less than $20 out of one of those, but it's because people believe that superstition, that people, and I don't know if that's true or not. When you go looking it up, they say it's folklore or an old wives' tale. But people are willing to pay $20 for a jar that I'm usually getting $4 out of because it has a number 13 on the bottom, so.
Go for it.
So whenever I go to the Goodwill or to a yard sale, I turn it over and that's the first thing I look to see is what number's on the bottom. So if you have some old canning jars with the number 13 on them, put $20 on them and tell them that you want $20 for them. The collectors will pay it. You have any other questions?
Has there been a resurgence in popularity of like Pyrex and Corningware?
Pyrex, yes. Pyrex is still, that is something that is still very hot, is Pyrex. Now,
According to Pyrex, you see that and it's.
the butter print, okay, the turquoise or the pink and the Cinderella bowls, those are very popular. And pretty much if it's Pyrex, you can get a good price out of it, provided that, have you ever seen anybody's Pyrex been through the dishwasher 400 times? You know, and how the color's worn off? That doesn't bring very much. So if you've got Pyrex that's not been through the dishwasher a bunch of times, that's not scratched up, and if you wanna check and see just how much scratching there is on your Pyrex, you can just get a little lamp like the one Judy had here a little bit ago, or even a flashlight, and you can shine a light under it, turn out the light in your kitchen and look to see, you know, how much light's coming through it, and you can usually see where the scratches are and see, you know, how damaged it is. But Pyrex does bring, that's still collectible. A lot of the kitchen items are. Corningware, people still use it, but it's not as popular as the Pyrex. And the glass bake is not as popular as the Pyrex. But if you have a set of refrigerator dishes, you know, like a 4-piece set, those go for quite a bit of money. And if you would happen to have, and I've run on this a lot of people would put their stuff back in the box, or else they didn't use it, and it would be in the garage or in like in a pantry. So if you ever go to an estate sale or somewhere and someone's got Corningware or any of it that's in the box, you know, where they've kept their set in the boxes are collectible. Sometimes the boxes are as collectible as the Pyrex. So you could sell the Pyrex in the box, or you could sell the Pyrex, and then when you're done with that, sell the box. Because there's people that collect it that want a box for it. So, and even like with the old carnival glass, I've seen the boxes for old punch bowls bring more money than the punch bowl will. And punch bowls are a thing that, unless it is an old carnival glass pattern, they really don't bring anything anymore. Punch bowls are things people don't use. Most of the time, someone, instead of going and buying a punch bowl, they'll borrow one from someone. Or they'll use a big plastic one. People don't entertain like they used to. Punch bowls and even large platters. Large platters used to bring a lot of money, and the big ones, people just don't have a place. The new homes, the cabinets, they don't have a place to put them in the cabinet. And people are downsizing or just deciding that just takes up too much room. Or a turkey platter, they only use it at Thanksgiving, so they'll just not use one. Cake plates, though, are highly sought after. You know, the glass cake plates on with the stand. People are looking for those always. So it's kind of like hit or miss. You would think, well, why don't they want a punch bowl, but they want a cake plate? It's because they're using them, for decoration. They'll decorate with them like for weddings and things. And that's something else that you can gather what kind of a trend there's going on is if you look at even weddings that you've been to or people's wedding photos to see how it's decorated at the reception hall and things, and look at items that people are looking for to use, to repurpose in a wedding. Something that brings quite a bit of money is old skeleton keys, old railroad items like railroad locks or something. A lot of times somebody might have had an old railroad lock that their dad had or their grandpa had. Any railroad related items are pretty well sought after right now.
What about old toys?
There is a market for old toys, especially old farm toys. So if you have like old tractors and they're in good condition, people are looking for them. Even if they're missing the stack, like sometimes, you know, like on like the little kids' tractors might have had a little plastic stack. If it's just a plastic stack missing off of it, that's not really a condition item because they're all missing it. But if they're missing wheels, they still have some value, but it's not as much value. But if you're cleaning out an old toy box and you don't have the tractor anymore, but you've got the wheels, that's something you might consider putting on eBay. Because there are people that will buy parts and pieces to a toy to restore toys that they have.
What about Tinker Toys and Lincoln Logs?
Those will sell good on a yard sale. The old Tinker Toys. I mean, people are still buying them. And old erector sets, that's something that people do still buy. Fisher Price is another item. The little people, that's an item that sells pretty good. So if you're cleaning out and you've got Fisher Price sets that nobody's playing with anymore, if the grandkids are all grown up, that might be an item to put out on your yard sale for sure.
I might have a whole
Even
huge
if it's,
tub of those.
even if it's one-off pieces, people will buy just like a person or to complete a set.
Right.
You just gotta have the right person.
No.
Well, that's it. It is, it's just the right person, and that's why if you sell it online, you have a broader marketplace where the person can find you. But if you're just looking to downsize, the best way is for a yard sale. And when you're looking, let's say if you're looking for something that you like, that maybe you wanna collect, you wanna look for items that are in good condition. So when you're looking at maybe, let's say you wanna collect teacups or teapots, you wanna look and make sure that they're not chipped or damaged or that the paint's not rubbed off, things like that. If you're gonna start a collection of something, you wanna find the best specimen you can, instead of, because if you do decide to resell it later, you wanna get the most you can out of it.
How about McDonald's toys?
Online, sometimes they are. It depends on the set. Because there's some people that are completists and they want every single item in a set. So if there's, I can't even think of the name of it. There was recently, did you see where McDonald's had an adult Happy Meal? Was it last year? That they had these adult Happy Meal toys? Well, people were going buying Happy Meals and selling the toys on eBay, and they were bringing $40 for each toy.
Wow.
They're not bringing $40 for each toy now. You can't get $5 for those same toys now. But it was because they were a limited run. They did it for like a month, and none of the McDonald's. They were supposed to have one this week and one the next week. They were like a series of 4, and they were supposed to do them like that. Well, all the toys came in at once, and they were just putting them in there, and they didn't do it week by week. And then they ran out of them because people were driving through the drive-thru ordering 6 of those Happy Meals because they wanted those toys to resell. So then they were out of toys, and then you had people that really wanted them, like they only got 2 or they only got 3 and they wanted the rest. So they're paying $40 for Happy Meal toys. Even the boxes, like some of those old Happy Meal boxes that fold, some of those were valuable. I actually have one from when I was a kid still. It's a Raggedy Ann and Andy. I collect Raggedy Ann and Andy, so I have a bunch of it. Much to my dismay, I can't retire off Raggedy Ann and Andy. I've got 600 pieces of it, and I couldn't sell the whole kit and caboodle for $600. I'm sure that nobody would even pay that. If I said I want $600 for all this, they'd think I was ludicrous.
What about jewelry? I have a pair of glass beads from my sister that passed away and some pearls that are not jewelry, it's like string or cord or whatever.
If pearls are for real, there certainly can be valuable, and the glass beads are more valuable than plastic generally, unless they're bakelite. And jewelry's one of those things you have to research, maybe who made it, if it's a signed piece, there's value in all of that, but you have to know, you have to research it and say what kind of beads they are, maybe if you could determine where the beads came from, if they were from Russia or from West Germany, maybe if the clasp on the necklace had that on it, that would give you a good indication of the time period it was made.
How about a big old oil lamp with the glass top?
Well,
You used to put the oil in the bottom and then you had the wick and you lit it when the lights went out.
yeah, I got a whole bunch of them. I got $10 a piece on them with the glass top. Guess how many I've sold in the last year? One.
I got
Because
a big one and a small one.
when the lights go out now, this is what people do.
Use your flashlight.
They got a flashlight on their cell phone, some,
Years ago.
and they just do this. So people aren't using them anymore. I still have them at home. And some of them you could get more than $10 for. I mean, I have some that I've got $25 on, but nobody's buying the $10 one, so, you know, they don't bring what they used to. If you have railroad lanterns, those bring more money. Sometimes railroad lanterns will bring about $100 if the railroad isn't marked on it, what railroad it's from.
Now I had an oil lamp with a big stem, you know, and it was in a holder that would swing. That was cool. So that's a good one.
Yes.
I got $129 out of that one, but the regular ones,
Yeah, like if you have an Aladdin lamp, the Aladdin brand,
Oh, yeah.
they have like the Lincoln drape. If you're familiar with that glass, you know it's called the Lincoln drape, and it looks like a stage curtain kind of draped around it. Now those sometimes they'll bring 100, 125, even 150 depending on the color. I actually do have one oil lamp that I have marked $99.50 on at the shop. Hasn't sold yet, but it's in my cabinet with my uranium glass because it does light under black light, and I'm sure that somebody will buy it for that reason, but not because it's an oil lamp. They'll want it because it's uranium glass. So if you have any green glass and you're curious about it, you know, you can get one of those low flashlights for $2 or $3 on Amazon.
Best advice if you want an antique is to buy something you like.
Yes, because you might be stuck with it for a very long time.
Because they do go up and down with the seasons and with whatever
They sure
popular
do.
and the books and stuff. And so if you enjoy it, have fun with it, enjoy it, you know, pass it on to your kids or whatever, let them worry about it. You know.
Ours
I
don't want it.
mentioned our relative, I took a carload last week and took to the Methodist church, so I'll just do that again. Donate.
Does anybody have any questions about anything or how to,
Pardon?
does anyone have any questions about anything?
I didn't hear.
any
Anybody
questions?
have any other questions?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
I bought an older crock, I'll have you look at it, really cool, I thought. Underneath it said not to be resold. Can I really sell it?
You can. So that probably was one that it was supposed to be refilled. Maybe it had liquor in it.
I'll bring it by you.
And
I'm gonna get in trouble if I sell it.
You can resell it. So a lot of times they would say not to be resold, and milk bottles used to say that too. Or a lot of times the old butter crocks
Yeah,
would say not to be resold or property of, and would have the creamery on it because they want you to bring it back to fill it back up. And you know, like the Crocs we were talking about, they bring like $10 a gallon, and you might think, oh gosh, that 20-gallon Croc should be worth more than $200 because I've had that for a long time. Well, that 20-gallon Croc probably cost $5 whenever somebody made it, you know. And a lot of times, 1-gallon Crocs and little butter Crocs, they would cost the companies 50 cents, 75 cents each. And that was to have their name printed on them even. So it has appreciated quite a bit. But also you have things that are heavy. And when you've got a 20-gallon Crock, you think that's heavy, and when is the time to get rid of it? Well, while you can still lift it, maybe. I mean, you know, if you have to carry it out of your house, you gotta think about that. How am I gonna get it out of here? My husband jokes with me that all the time. He said, you know, you think you might wanna get rid of that before I can still get on my own 2 feet to carry it out. So And he's right, because one day maybe we won't be able to carry some of the heavy furniture or heavy things. It's taking up space. Well, if you don't have any other questions, and if you think of anything, just stop by the shop. And if you ever do have anything that you're interested in trying to find a ballpark value or something, I'm happy to help you. It only takes a few minutes to look something up, and we can figure out maybe what an approximate value is on it, and I can maybe even give you advice of the best place to sell it, if you're trying to sell it, or if maybe you just want to know for insurance purposes to insure something. And that's something else that I will point out to you. A lot of people, unless you are an antique dealer or you have a large collection of antiques, you may not know, but your regular homeowner's insurance is not going to replace your antiques at the value of them. You have to have something called an inland marine policy or a special rider on your homeowner's insurance to cover antiques.
Or scheduled, where you specifically name each.
Yes, where you name each piece in there, and if you don't have that rider on your insurance, so maybe you have a whole bunch of things that you think are very valuable, and they could very well be. I'm not discounting that, but if something happens to your collection in a fire or something, the insurance company is going to say, well, you know, you've got replacement value, but you have to go out and buy every one of those things for us to give you your money back.
I have a set of pink open lace depression gloves that my aunt gave me.
And those are valuable if they're not broken.
When I was unwrapping them, my husband said, what are you gonna do with them? I said, well, I'm gonna keep them. Aunt Sue gave them to me. So we went to the mall in Bloomington, this was years ago, and I found them.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it. I picked up one glass, $72. So I talked to the guy and he said, don't sell them. He said, go to the library and get a book. So I did. So I told my kids, and I've got them marked and the book is there, but I said, don't sell them. They're Aunt Sue's. So
The only thing about the book values now, they're all, I've got a whole bookshelf full of those books.
I don't
None of the
care.
value.
They're Aunt Sue's.
Right, and you don't want to sell them, and I don't blame you, but the value of the books are not what they used to be. I mean, because the books didn't go with the market. The books were at the market at the time that the book was printed. So if you have a book on depression glass that was printed in 1988, that is the value in 1980. Sadly, it has come considerably down, but pink depression with the open lace, if it has the white around the edges, that is still a collectible pattern that people want, and mainly because a lot of times the open lace has been chipped or broken. So people want to replace a piece, and that's something else. So let's say you have a service for 12 of china or depression glass.
Mine's 8.
Okay, so you have a service for 8. Well, your service for 8 is more valuable as one piece at a time than it is as the whole set. And the reason why is because nobody wants a service for 8 that's going to buy depression glass. What they want is to replace the piece that's broken in Aunt Sue's collection. So if you drop Aunt Sue's sherbet bowl, you want to go and find another one just like that to keep the set of 8. So that's how it's sold. People don't run out and buy a set of china anymore. They don't even register for it when they get married. Used to be, you ladies probably all remember when you got married, you registered for your china and your silver. They don't do that anymore. They go on Amazon and they register for stuff like paper towel holders and a coffee pot, and you know, they don't register for china or silver. My nephew's getting married next week, and I went on there to see what he registered for, and they had registered for like a fan and a box, you know what I mean? But I was like, okay, nobody wants china, no, you know, you go down the list, but they don't register for china or silver anymore. So if somebody in your family has a piece that you want to replace, you would look for that one particular piece. And that's, whole sets of china just don't sell anymore, unless it's to crafters or unless you're giving it away. Because somebody's setting up housekeeping and they need dishes, and a lot of times they don't even know it's china. They just, you know, they'll buy them for $10 or $20 because it's cheaper than the Walmart.